Guess who's back? Yeah, so I've been gone for a while, a little post-election going into holiday hiatus. Um, I wasn't planning to. I was planning, as I had said before, to kind of cut down on videos for a time. Not totally cut it off, but it ended up being, I think, a healthy thing. Um, I went into the woods. I interacted with the wildlife, and I'm just kidding. I know I grew a beard. It looks like I went and lived in the woods for a while. That's not true, but it was actually a very nice thing. Uh, we all need a break, right? We all need mental health breaks. Um, with the crappy state of mental health care in this country, it's highly needed. So, just to talk about a few things, I'm going to try to keep it brief. Um, First of all, we are now well into the partial government shutdown. Basically, started by a hissy fit from the man-child president of the United States because Ann Coulter and Rush Limbaugh got mad at him because that bullshit promise about this wall turned out to be bullshit. So this is, where we're at in American political discourse. The wall is a trash idea. Even if you were to accept the premise of, that we need to control immigration and it's insufficient right now, and disregard the fact that the migration from other countries in the U.S. is from Mexico and the U.S. isn't particularly high or particularly quote unquote catastrophic. A wall is a massively ineffective way to do anything. Guess what? You can go above walls and you can dig under walls. For a border that big, it ain't gonna do shit. There are many ways to handle that, and only a simple-minded moron, which is basically the entirety of the Republican Party, so maybe it makes sense, would believe that it would work, or they look to their beacon of light, Israel made a wall and so we have to do it too. Fuck if I know. But this whole notion is nothing more than a scare ploy to distract from, real, tangible problems in our lives. It's a scapegoat to scapegoat people who are, more vulnerable, who look different. They become the other. This is the oldest trick in the book, The people in power who are causing problems, they deflect to the weak in society. Because no one ever wants to, it's like being in school. No one ever wants to be the one who's bullied, at the bottom rung. At least if you're one above, there's got to be someone below you. It makes you feel better. But then you realize, even though it makes you feel better, it doesn't do jack shit because you're still there. You're still not any better. They just threw someone below you. But it's hard to see because a thing like a wall is concrete. You see it, so then it makes you feel better. There's a wall, it's blocking. Doesn't matter about the facts on the ground. It makes you feel better. And that's really what society is today. We just want things that make us feel better. Not things that actually tangibly improve our lives. It just makes us, feel better. It's all placebo. It's all a ruse. It's a trick. So that's what it is. So this is what Trump's done, and they decided to shut down the government, which has, speaking of tangible problems, serious problems. A lot of people now aren't getting paid to start the year, more than even usual. You have critical government services for people who desperately need it not going out. You have confusion on who's going to work and who's not going to work. You have national parks, which you can't really close, which are a crown jewel of this country, and So people are going in and no one's there to take out the trash. No one's there to clean. No one's there to maintain. These are real tangible things. Over a wall that would cost $5 trillion. $5 trillion. Far be it from me, I thought the Republican Party was the party of small government. I thought the Republican Party cared about fiscal responsibility. My right ass cheek, they give a flying fuck about anything like that. Fiscal responsibility. Give me a break. You want to build a fucking $5 trillion, big Lego set. Okay? That's all that is. It's an illusion. So don't let anybody ever tell you about that, because that is the party that ran us into a needless war in Iraq. That land is a giant tax giveaway to corporations, over $1 trillion deficit. That now is bitching and moaning about a wall we don't need. Let's take that money. Let's put that into infrastructure. Trump loves to talk about infrastructure. Let's take that $5 trillion. Let's put into some infrastructure. This isn't hard. This isn't fucking rocket science. You don't need an advanced degree to get this. But it seems that way because everybody just wants to feel better. And you know what? They're not as bad as Trump by any stretch, but the Democrats are no different in a lot of ways. Well, let me rephrase that. It's not that they're no different. I don't agree with that. But the Democrats fall into this trap as well, of just wanting to feel better without the concrete results. Case in point, Nancy Pelosi, the Democratic House. Now, there's a lot to be excited about with the Democratic House coming in. There's a lot to be happy about. H.R. 1, I'd highly encourage people to look at that. A lot of good stuff in that bill. Time limited right now, but something to look into at some point. A number of great members of Congress who are really impressed so far before even becoming actual congressmen or congresswomen. So there's a lot of good stuff happening. But, they say the more things change, the more they stay the same, and there's a lot to that. What have they done? The Democrats have tried to bring back something called PAYGO. PAYGO is essentially a rule that says if you're going to pass, a spending project or something, you should have a mechanism to pay for it, so you're not increasing the deficit. Now, on the surface, that sounds very nice. That sounds like a great thing. It sounds comforting. It feels good. And then it allows you to say, hey, we're going to go to the right of the Republican Party. We're going to try to sell you in the fact that we're actually the party of responsibility, of fiscal responsibility. We're going to be the party of small government. It's sort of a 1990s Clintonian mindset that's actually something people care about. That's actually important to people. Yeah, newsflash. If people in the middle or the right cared about deficits, cared about spending a lot of money, the Republicans would be losing a lot more elections pre-2018 than they did. All right? Because if you look back, a lot of the biggest drainers, the biggest deficit exploders are things like the Iraq War, enacted by a Republican. Tax cuts to the wealthy, enacted by Republicans, Bush and Trump. This fucking wall. Absurd, defense contracts. Subsidies to oil companies. These don't actually tangibly make yours or my life better, but, they're there. We are not looking at it because we're focused on these things like the wall. Again, that's what we're interested in. Feeling better. Makes me feel better. So, that's what's happening. So Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats have decided they want to bring this back. The Republicans never kept to this. But Nancy Pelosi she thinks she's brilliant with this plan. I'm going to make this and then I can sell it to the center. Like the center didn't come to you in 2016 when fucking Donald Trump was running. You know, the supposed mythical center ain't coming to you now. All right? You're better off going after non-voters. You're better off going after, you know, people who may have, you know, couldn't bring themselves to vote for Hillary Clinton. You're better off going after those people. It's just unbelievable stupidity. Now, luckily, a few House members are striking back. Ro Khanna, AOC, the usual suspects, saying, you know, let's stop this. But unfortunately, even some progressives are folding, saying, oh, but if we do something big, they'll waive it. That's highly gullible. And why is it that Democrats always got to be so freaking gullible? Like when they thought, when Chuck Schumer thought that he was going to that Trump was going to actually keep a promise on DACA, or any other thing. You know, no, you don't believe them. There's just gullibility galore. So, we'll see what happens. They vote tomorrow. My sense is, from all the reports, they're probably going to be able to pass it through. Which means for each big piece of legislation, they're going to have a vote to waive this rule. So, unilateral disarmament is what Democrats do best. But you know, it'll be interesting with the primaries coming up. Similar dynamic. Democrats have a decision to make. Do they want to be more bold? Relatively speaking, of course. I'm not saying they're going to bring in, you know, some really, really radical person. But you have, you know, relatively more radical people and relatively more crappy candidates. So let's see what Democrats got. And this is where I am pretty terrified. Now, before I get to why I'm terrified, a couple points on some candidates who seem to be on the move. Elizabeth Warren has formed her exploratory committee. She had a real nice ad. Kind of had a feeling something like this was coming soon, because she just gave the commencement at Morgan State, and I watched that, and it was a good speech actually. And I thought she had a good story to tell, and it was after she hasn't had the best of last couple of years, had made some highly questionable political decisions. But to her credit, I mean, I thought it was good, and I thought it was well received. I also thought her video introducing the campaign was strong. I think it was well done, and she said a lot of the right things. Now, she's always going to have skepticism on the left, and I understand that. I got that too, in particular with foreign policy issues, but not just that. But I think she is definitely within the field one of the better candidates. I think she's willing to be stronger on certain issues that others will not be. So I'm glad she's in the race. I hope she continues. That's not to say I don't want someone like Bernie Sanders or someone else on the left to run. I hope more do run, honestly. I think largely I would like to see them run. I would like to see, you know, I'm good with even people like Cory Booker, you know, Beto, although I don't really see the qualifications of his qualifications, and I will fight like hell against him. Go ahead and run. Kamala Harris, I think she's a skillful politician. She's a strong interrogator in the Senate, and she has come out in support of Medicare for All. Also, I think I heard she might be having her campaign headquarters in Baltimore. I think, you know, good thing for the city maybe, but I also have grave concerns about her. How sincere is she? But you can't really judge that, so that's less of an issue as much as, you know, what she did as a California Attorney General, basically letting Steve Mnuchin, now Treasury Secretary, off the hook for some pretty downright evil things with regard to foreclosing on people. So, you know, there's the good to go with the bad with people like that. But I hope they run, and, you know, we see a good primary, and we see, an honest evaluation of the candidates. Let them be vetted. No one should be coronated. I think we've seen that coronations don't fucking work, which brings me to Joe Biden. Joe Biden is the 2016-20 version of Hillary Clinton. Joe Biden, who in the past I've liked him, I like some things about him, ultimately has a terrible record in things like criminal justice. A terrible record with regard to, deregulation. Has a terrible record in foreign policy. I could go down a fucking list. He just doesn't have a good record. And you can say, oh, that was old, that was a different time. Fair point. Oh, wait, except he's talking about cutting Social Security and Medicare in 2018. Right? He's not a good choice, but he terrifies me because he's the type of guy, just like Hillary, who a lot of people will vote for based on name, they've heard of him, and it makes them think of a better time. Or at least what felt like a better time. So again, what feels good. Uncle Joe makes me feel good. So I'm going to vote for him. Then, when he gets in there and he gets his ass kicked by Trump, then we're going to all say, no, not this was a bad decision. Let's blame the people who didn't vote for him. Because he was entitled to their votes. Because that's what makes them feel better. They're seeing kind of a tie together right now. So I don't want to see Joe Biden run in the slightest. I think he would screw it up and a lot of people would try to coronate his ass. At least with someone like Beto, you can fight them. And even though he's got his, creepy cultist defenders, that's fine. You can have a fight. Biden, I think a lot of people who do a lot less research. Gotta remember, most voters don't actually do a lot of research. They might just vote for him, and that's a pretty terrifying prospect. I'd rather see. Look what happened to the Republicans. You had a whole lot of people, and Trump came out of it. I would rather see a big brouhaha, honestly. And let's get some honest records. And a lot of people think that's not good. Oh, that weakens candidates. I say primaries are good. They're democratic, and iron sharpens iron. It'll strengthen things. It's good to be transparent about that kind of shit. So that's my feel on that. But you got to remember, always be careful. If you're going in that primary, don't think about what makes you feel better. Think of who's offering tangible results. They'll give you health care. That'll give you a chance to go to college, or your kids to go to college without having, bone-crushing debt. Those are real. So that's what I have to say with that. And if we don't think about things like that, we're going to end up like Brazil, which you could say in some ways with Trump, we're already there, but they have just inaugurated Jair Bolsonaro, who is a fascist president who makes Trump look actually all right. That's how bad the motherfucker is. This is a guy who's going to probably, plow a good chunk of the Amazon rainforest, who's going to sell his country over to, multinational corporations who believes in markets, not activism. But his idea of markets isn't even your neoliberal kind of, or even your progressive capitalist idea of markets. It's a straight up, free for all. It's giant monopolies that are only interested in profit at the expense of people's welfare, at the expense of people's lives. This is the type of people we're talking about. The guy is a bigot. He's a racist. He's a misogynist. He's a homophobe. He's atrocious. He likes to pal around with fellow right-wing fascists, from Benjamin Netanyahu to, those leaders, some more fascist leaders in Latin America, to Trump, to, people in Eastern Europe, certain leaders in Eastern Europe. This is the type of guy he is. And you would say, oh, okay, but I'm sure, Republicans, Democrats, we come out against, because that's what we do. We're America. We believe in humanity. We believe in, human rights. You got another thing. If you believe that, you're incredibly naive. Nikki Haley, who was one of the sane voices of the Trump administration, one of the reasonable Republicans, as the media would like to call her, welcomed him with open arms as an America-friendly president. They don't give a fuck about human rights. They never did. All right? They like him because he's going to make them and their friends money. They like him because he's going to be a puppet for whatever we need him to do. So, but again, what happened in Brazil? You had a bad situation. You had the left effectively crushed by the capitalist class, by financial powers, by the center right. Essentially, they were impeached. They were arrested on highly questionable charges. And then, what did they do? They assumed that their candidate would win. No, an even more right-wing candidate would win. And because people voted for someone who came out and talked in a way that would make them feel better. Okay? Because you had nothing tangible to offer, they're going to listen to somebody who makes them feel better. Now, what happened in 2016? The Democrats had a candidate who had very little to offer, you could say, might be tangibly better, but she couldn't communicate that. And you had someone like Trump who talked in a way that made a lot of people feel better. Now, don't get me wrong, sexism had a major role to play. Racism had a major role, and those should not be downgraded. Voter suppression had a major role. Comey had somewhat of a role. A lot of roles. It should never have been close enough, by the way, that Comey would play a role, though. It should have never been that close. And who knows what the fuck happened with the Russians. It should have never been that close. So, you got to remember that. That's just my take home. What feels good. Sometimes people will go with what feels good rather than the tangible result, unless you offer it to them very clearly in a way that makes them feel better, so what they feel good lines up with what's tangibly better for them. So that's really my take-home point for today. I'll be doing more videos, hopefully soon. But till next time, have a good night and peace out.